wind, all going to be on the table. So we'll break it down city by city. Virtual view technology allows you to see what it's going to be like in Houston. We go from those blue skies of today for 2 more periods of rain as the storm moves closer to the city. For parts of eastern Texas, you'll begin to see those effects shortly. We look at the future radar starting up tomorrow morning at 2 o'clock. Still dry, but you can see some of that rain begins to advance in closer to the lunchtime hour, and the heaviest stuff would be closer to the coast. But I think Houston, you could get in on some pockets of heavier downpours as the afternoon wears on. Now we're at Wednesday with some lingering showers in the area. So Houston, it's going to be a pretty sharp cutoff between coastal areas and downtown. I think Houston proper, probably around a ½ inch, but areas along the coast, like a Galveston, could see 2+ inch totals. Now we look at Lake Charles over towards Lafayette, Louisiana, up to Alexandria, eastern parts of Texas, including the Beaumont area. Your rain begins in earnest as we move into Tuesday afternoon. By Tuesday evening and overnight, we'll continue to see more persistent rain, the heaviest of stuff as the storm approaches by Wednesday midday. And again, could be looking at some very heavy rain and more intense winds around the Lafayette area. So south central parts of Louisiana at this point look to be the area at greatest risk for that landfall and the strongest of winds. But some very heavy rain possible for a place like Lake Charles, but especially off to the south and east, closer to the core of the storm. How about 5 to 8+ inch totals? Lafayette could be looking at some flash flood potential and also the stronger of winds. So here's Wednesday afternoon with those winds gusting 50, 60, even up to 75 miles an hour in a place like Lafayette. If the storm moves right through, you see the winds calm, and then on the backside or the south side of that eye wall, you're going to be looking at some stronger winds. But again, Dr. Nab, the exact path is still uncertain. We're going to be watching for that. But what we are sure of is that the rain will bring a flood threat. Yeah, the Ohio Valley, so the rain will move farther to the north. And we've been watching these areas for wet weather over the past few days. Now, the southeast, you guys have been especially soggy over the weekend, over last week. We had that stalled front. Remember, we were just talking about day after day after day of rain. So some heavy rain across sections of Mississippi, Alabama, South Georgia, North Florida, some persistent showers and thunderstorms there. And then we've seen some extending up into the Great Lakes. But by Thursday, with Francine moving off to the north, so does the rain and thunderstorm probability. So we're going to see more of that wet weather into the mid-south, places like Memphis and Nashville, Paducah, Kentucky, Little Rock, northern sections of Mississippi, Tupelo, a Meridian over towards the Greenville area. All of these areas getting in on rain, and all of these areas also looking at the risk of flash flooding. So Thursday into Friday, now we've got Birmingham west, Greenville, again, Little Rock, Jonesboro, places like Memphis, closing in on Paducah, probably not there for the greatest risk, but possibility of at least some flash flooding. On Friday, now the Ohio Valley looking at showers and storms, as will the southeast. So parts of Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, these areas could see some flash flooding, especially where we have terrain coming into play. That would be upstate South Carolina, western North Carolina, North Georgia, eastern Tennessee, and then the Ohio Valley, where some more persistent moderate to heavy rain will be. On Saturday, now our rain and thunderstorm chances highest into parts of the southeast. That would include Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, parts of Kentucky and Virginia as well. And the European model brings the rainfall amounts between Wednesday and Saturday as high as 5 to 8 inches across sections of the Mississippi River Valley and parts of the south, a good 3 to 5 inch possibility there. USGFS very similar, especially in the mid-south states. Well, coming up on Weather Unfiltered, we'll continue for Francine. There's a lot of potential with this storm for strengthening, for impacts, but there's also some things that are going to be working against it. So as we oftentimes like to do, we like to pepper you with what's working for this, what's working against this, what should we be prepared for as worst case scenario.
Well, this is an important discussion to have because we only have a couple of days and a few hours maybe before it makes landfall, and a lot can happen in those couple of days with a lot of factors working for and against it. And I'm most concerned about that period tomorrow, from a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm to maybe an 85-mile-an-hour or stronger hurricane by Wednesday morning. Tomorrow night is the time when the models are suggesting it could go under its most intensification, possibly rapid. And so we can't rule out a Category 2 outside shot into Category 3 if it were to get its inner core together. Its internal organization problems are the main thing working against it right now.
And that you think will come into play tomorrow? You think we'll have a more organized system? You know, things can't really get going. This can't strengthen until it's got itself together.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important for the hurricane hunters to be out there, because it's hard to tell just by looking at this imagery how well organized that inner core is. So that's why we need those hurricane hunters. And it's over plenty plenty warm water and weak wind shear over the next couple of days. The Gulf is always warm enough.
Right.
And look at that ton of extra ocean heat content that is going over during the next day and a half before it gets to the northwestern Gulf.
You've already said it. We don't trust the Gulf. We've seen this happen before, where a storm with any period of time over the Gulf. Now, you point out the ocean heat content's not at its max level, but there's plenty of it.
Yep. And overall, this is the Gulf being as warm as it's ever been. So even if you're not over the warmest part of the Gulf, you're over some very warm water. So I don't think fuel is going to be a big hindrance, but it will get less abundant fuel once it gets to that northwestern Gulf. So again, tomorrow is the day where it's over its warmest water. And look at that upper level high pressure that's sitting over the Gulf of Mexico. And between now and, say, Wednesday midday, it's going to be sitting under that high. But then what happens is this upper level trough moves in, part of what's steering it, and by the time it gets to the northwestern Gulf, the wind shear increases again. So this is a really good summary animation to show the low level spin represented by the colors getting more organized, the shear being weak, but then the shear increasing.
So it could do us a favor at the end, but you don't want to bank on that, because we know we've got a good, 24 to 36 hours of potential intensification, if not explosiveness.
Yeah, so the model's showing the concentration of the spin a lot more better defined tomorrow, and it's over the weak area of weak wind shear. But once it gets to the northern Gulf Coast, the wind shear from the southwest starts to increase. So maybe it plateaus before landfall. Maybe that saves us from having a major hurricane.
That would be some good news. All right, much more coming, but you'll see the effects. Heavy rain for one, and we know that's going to lead to its own issues when it comes to flooding. So it may not be the surge flooding, but you'll be up against that heavy rainfall-induced flooding. Over the last 7 days, the New Orleans metro area has seen plenty of 5 to 8+ inch totals. It has been absolutely soaking across the area. The south and east part of Louisiana has been saturated, just day after day of rainfall. And now this system comes in, Francine, and offers up even more in the way of rainfall. So how about 3 to 5, even some 5+ inch totals in and around the New Orleans metro areas farther to the west could pick up a 8 to 12 inch total. So very heavy rain, flash flooding potential, river flooding potential will be something we watch for. Rainfall out there today, not associated with Francine, but as the storm moves off to the north and east during the day on Tuesday, we'll begin to see rainfall rates increase. That will be more persistent into our Wednesday when the storm actually makes landfall. So tomorrow into Wednesday, it's coastal sections of the Gulf. So Texas through Louisiana, even southern sections of Mississippi, Gulfport, Biloxi, over towards Mobile, Alabama. You guys could see some flash flooding issues. When we look at the Wednesday forecast, here comes the storm. Wednesday early morning, we begin to see the rainfall ramp up. Heaviest of rain during the late morning and afternoon hours of Wednesday. So more flash flood potential, severe weather potential as well Wednesday. Let's be ready for the Atlantic Basin to wake up from its late August nap. And it has. He's going to outline the next areas that we're watching in a minute, including Invest 92L, an area to watch behind that. But of course, we've got Tropical Storm Francine currently in the Gulf of Mexico. Latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center, a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm anticipated to become a hurricane here in the coming day. So this is going to make landfall likely in the state of Louisiana, but there's a lot to watch here in the next 24 to 36 hours. Again, there's a look at Francine, 60-mile-per-hour winds currently, pressure 996 millibars. It is 180 miles to the south-southeast of the mouth of the Rio Grande. So this has already begun to bring heavy rain to portions of South Texas. We've seen water issues in the Brownsville area. Enhanced satellite picture, the hurricane hunters have been out there diagnosing where the center of this system is. But again, as we get a more organized system here, likely into tomorrow, we will have a system that could take off in intensification. So we could see a very strong storm as it makes its way into the Louisiana coastline. That's why hurricane watches are currently posted from areas east of Lake Charles over to spots west of New Orleans. This would include a Morgan City and also a Lafayette, Mike.
All right, Alex.